A bit cooler ahead. Your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy, highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday, partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Thank you for letting us be of service to you on this Friday morning. Joe Thomas in the morning here inside your radios and televisions and whatever your smartphone apps, whatever they may be. You ever get one of those, like, I don't even ask. It's just one of those, like, you get itchy sometimes. I've had this thing since, when was I? 25, so 1986. I've had this thing, and I don't know why. With the exception of when I was going through chemo, when most of it fell out, and I still. Here's a question for you oncologists out there: how come the only hair that didn't fall off of me during chemotherapy was my ear hair? Why is that made of different stuff? And maybe this is something our scientific community should look into. What's Tony Fauci doing these days? Anyway, so much to get into. Much of this we will go over with Virginia 5th District Congressman and Chair of the House Freedom Caucus, Bob Good, a little bit later on this morning, including but not limited to the aid package, a segment I like to call Pork Fried Pork, because the TikTok ban, which you and I have discussed several times over, this Trojan horse that will allow the government to shut down my Rumble channel if they so fit, or the YouTube channel that I already have like 3 strikes on. Well, I have that first not strike and now 2 proper strikes, so I'm just one shouting of ivermectin in a crowded emergency room short of getting kicked off of YouTube. But they could shut the whole thing down under this TikTok ban, this Trojan horse, and they've buried it into the aid package program that we already don't like. But we'll get into that. But the bigger story is, of course, coming out of the Middle East, where depending on who you ask, I guess that's always the fun. Who you ask and what is their story on it. So this is Sky News because, well, to be fair, there's a lot of American media I don't get my news from because, well, the British just seem to do it better or faster or more accurately than the Americans do. So this is Sky News coverage. And then I don't know if you remember Baghdad Bob back during the invasion and the expelling of the invading force from Kuwait. Baghdad Bob was basically Saddam Hussein's version of Karine Jean-Pierre. Well, we have a new one. It's Tehran Timmy, who's out there. So what invasion? What invasion? We don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, here's the story from as Sky News reported it.
And we've woken up in the early hours of this morning to learn that Israel has launched an attack on Iran. Now, we are being told that this attack is limited. There is still very little information coming out, but we have learned from various sources that this strike was limited. But the fact remains that Israel has attacked Iran almost a week after Iran attacked Israel. So the situation here is escalating, and it is a very tense time. Let me bring in our Middle East correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, who's here with me in Jerusalem. And Alistair, all week we heard that there might be a potential strike back from Israel, and in the early hours of this morning, that's exactly what's happened.
It is. The Israeli government had been taking a lot of advice from their allies, President Biden saying take the win, Lord Cameron and the German foreign minister both in Israel this week, also trying to gently nudge Israel away from anything that could lead us into the path of war. But ultimately, Netanyahu was clear. Israel would always do what it felt was in its own best interests and in the interests of its future security. And so I don't think there was ever much doubt that Israel was going to carry out some sort of response after what Iran did here on Saturday night. And now we know, or we're starting to find out at least, what that response is.
So
Most people have
this
no clue
is
that in 2023
that
the
is
best way to make
their response is, as we understand it, it's an attack on areas near some Iranian nuclear development sites. Now, there's a secondary story coming out that says Iran is weeks, according to a U.S. official, weeks from final completion of nuclear bomb technology. Now, however, I mentioned Tehran Tim. We have the clip of the, well, it's not a he's just, this is what's his statement. Senior official, Iranian official, said under promise of anonymity, the foreign source of the incident has not been confirmed. We have not received any external attack, and the discussion leans more towards infiltration than attack. So, like Baghdad Bob, what American army? We don't know anything about the American army or anything else. So Tehran Timmy is out there saying, "What attack? We haven't been attacked." I hearken back Saturday night, former 5th District Congressman, who we refer to as, of course, the Wriggler on this program, took to X to say, love reading all the conspiracy theorists on X. This is not World War II, which, as it probably did for you as well, made me feel like, well, that probably means it's close to being World War III, not II, III. So the Wriggler is telling us it's not World War III. Israel is launching airstrikes into Iran. Iran is using its puppet states in Yemen to launch drone strikes on Israel. And the price of gas has gone up 3%, or crude oil has gone up 3%. Is this greedflation, President Biden? Is this more of what you and Bob Casey of Pennsylvania call greedflation? Is airstrikes going on around oil fields greedflation? So for our part right now, expect the hit at the gas pumps as this escalates there. But what is the end game in this? I mean, Joe, to emails to jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com, or you can call 434-882-4217. Of course, leave a message and then we'll play it back. As soon as you're done leaving it, we'll uplink it and download it and offshoot it, and then I'll respond in kind. If it's a question you have, we'll answer it as best we can. We have 3 kinds of answers here: right answers, wrong answers, and smart alecky answers. So generally you can choose from one of those spots in there. So as this continues, remember, Hakeem Jeffries has said, another thing we'll bring up with Congressman Good when he's on with us later on, Hakeem Jeffries has said, no aid package for no one, nowhere, no how. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. Unless it includes $9 billion to Hamas. And this is where so much of the schism in the Democratic Party is coming in, because there were people saying, "Oh gosh, I don't know about this giving people use the phrase war crimes. War is a crime against humanity. War is an army marching against citizens. And I love these people who talk about the avoidance of civilian toll. Tell that to the people in all those German and French cities that were just bombarded. Tell all those people in London who just had their city shelled constantly. Where were the people saying, no, 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 don't hit the civilians? Often the civilians are, not to get into wargaming, the civilians are who the armies target to get the government to say no mas. That's generally what you do. The British did that in their desperate attempts to continue their occupation of the American colonies. They were attacking civilians like crazy. So all these, well, we're civilized now. We don't. No, if you're going to engage in war, which should be unpleasant and should be avoided at all costs. And this is a grand scale of everything the American left promotes and promulgates, which is, I believe different things than you do, so I'm going to attack you for it. This is a grand scale with potentially nuclear weapons version of the very same things that happen to people like you and me on TikTok and Rumble and X and all of the other social, Instagram. Because if you don't agree with me, we must attack you. We must destroy you for your disagreement with us. I mean, it used to be, and even to a degree what we see in Russia and Ukraine is Russia says, hey, we really don't have a seaport if we don't have Ukraine. And that's really all it is. I mean, Vlad the Invader can say all he wants about invading Ukraine to help get rid of their Nazis. Again, it's like borrowing a cup of sugar. Hey, can I get a couple of infantry who's going to come in and invade us to get rid of our Nazis? But the truth be told, Russia needed the Crimea, so it had a seaport. It was where the Soviet Union's biggest submarine base was. And that's all this is. It's a land grab. It's territorialism. It's I need your agriculture, or I need your seaports. I need more room for industry, or I need your industries. You have industries. So these are all the things that drive, as much as we wrap it in socioeconomic and religious things, it's always about territory. I want your territory. I want, but not anymore, because this is ideological warfare. This is I disagree with your just simple existence, and that's what made President Trump's or Mark Meadows, however you want to give credit to for the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords were brilliant for several reasons. Number one, they marginalized Iran. Ever since January 21st of 2021, Iran has been anything but marginalized. They've become play a pimp on the world stage, chairing and being the center of this BRIC bank with China, Russia, South Africa, maybe Saudi Arabia. And part of this is Iran trying to get the rest of the Arab world to join in on their little caravan to hell. Or to the dozen or so virgins they're supposed to get at the end. This is ideological. They don't want Israel's territory. I mean, the Gaza residents, they want what Israel has because they see Israel has agriculture and all this other stuff that their society doesn't have. But what will happen, just like it happened in Zimbabwe when it stopped being South Rhodesia, is the communists, which is what they can wrap themselves in all of the ethnic-looking robes and scarves they want. This is just communism, because communism existed long before Marx wrote it down. Caesar was a communist, and all the successive Roman emperors were communists. They didn't have a name for it. They didn't have laws against it, like they do in Florida. We can get into that as well. But this religious Marxism that is pretending will take over Israel, and ruin their agriculture within 10 years. I don't think it will take 10 years as it did in Zimbabwe when the breadbasket of South Africa or southern sub-Saharan Africa was decimated by the communists who took over the farms from the white people. And then they were devastated within 10 years, and their economy crashed, and it's going to wash, rinse, and repeat again. But this isn't as much about territory as it is your simple existence is irksome to me, and I must destroy you for it.
This is the Racing Wire Minute with Brian Belansky.
Anybody can win. That story next.
She can stand, she can do more. Like build a rocket and watch it soar. Clean the oceans and make the world a better place. Oh, she can STEM.
Learn more at She Can STEM.
This weekend, it's NASCAR's first of 2 visits to Talladega Superspeedway, and literally anyone can win. It's restrictor plate racing. That's both the great equalizer from a performance standpoint and from the throw up your arms and scratch your head standpoint. When the threat of the big one lurks on every lap, it's really impossible to pick a favorite. That's why there's been so many first-time winners at Dega. Names like Davey Allison, Kenny Schrader, Brad Keselowski, and Bubba Wallace all won their first Cup races at Talladega. If I had to pick a potential first-time winner, my brain says Ty Gibbs. My heart says Anthony Alfredo. Sunday's race starts at 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
A bit cooler ahead. Your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy, highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday, partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for being on the receiving end of whatever it is you call this. I mean, it's 37 years in broadcasting, and all of a sudden we're sending it out instead of over amplitude or frequency modulation, whatever we modulated between the ones and zeros that make the internet go. And I appreciate you just bringing it in here and tuning in as you do. Hundreds and hundreds of people. I just got a notification that we now have over 100 subscribers on YouTube. I don't know what that means. But we are on our third strike with YouTube, so be careful with me there. So you may subscribe to a channel that's going to get kicked out faster than Pete Rose at a baseball convention. Several other things going on. You can weigh in through the email to jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com, or you can leave a message, and I'll pull up in your comments on the Israeli attack in Iran and why they didn't strike the nuclear bases. They struck around them, according to what we're being told there. But I want to move off onto this. There's as the Trump trial continues and the judge says, if you're not here, I'm throwing you in jail. or something to that degree. And to be fair, the president keeps collecting millions of dollars every time he's in the courtroom. And he doesn't have to pay for the TV time. I wonder if the TV networks, journalists generally don't understand the whole thing, where if somebody shows up in their newscast, it's worth like 100 commercials, maybe more, depending on the market size. So every one of those TV networks that's just showing Trump in the courtroom, just giving the guy free commercials. I mean, never mind the fact that he lives rent-free in their heads anyway. They're all suffering grade 5 TDS, as somebody said earlier in the week. But there was an American Thinker piece that I saw, and then Dr. Clark also saw as well. It's the result of a post-truth society, the issue with the jurors. And it struck me that it reminded me of this piece that I saw on X. This is the head of National Public Radio explaining so much to us regarding truth.
But what about the hard things, the places where we are prone to disagreement, say politics and religion? Well, as it turns out, not only does Wikipedia's model work there, it actually works really well. Because in our normal lives, these contentious conversations tend to erupt over disagreement about what the truth actually is. But the people who write these articles, they're not focused on the truth. They're focused on something else, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years of working with these brilliant folks, I've come to believe that they are onto something, that perhaps for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done.
So according to this NPR director, the truth is irrelevant as long as we get things done. Now, if you go back and read the premise of Marxism, for everyone who says, no, NPR is not Marxist, that's Marxism. That lying in order to achieve the goal is part of the plan. And this is what I've always said to people. I don't care who Karl Marx was. He was just codifying a way to do tyranny without it seeming so bad. By the turn of the 20th century, tyrants, we were like, man, if we could just make tyranny seem less tyrannical. And that's really what Marxism is a treatise on how to make tyranny seem less tyrannical. So Marx gets to work on this treatise, sitting in a coffee shop in London, stewing over the fact that all these young men from the farms are now going into factories, and he doesn't have any work because, he's brilliant, obviously. The idea of truth, though, see, and that becomes our modern paradigm where we allow people to have their truth. Tell us, speak your truth. Isn't that a maddening statement? Your truth, there is the truth. And there are instances where we have stories. You have Donald Trump's story and Joe Biden's story about what went on. And then, as most of us who have grown up with a brain cell understand, that generally when somebody tells you a story, there's going to be an alternative version of the story coming from someone else. Somewhere in between those two will be where the actuality happened. But this post-truth society, American Thinker, This essay is not about the fact that Trump's hush money trial is completely corrupt for a myriad of reasons. These reasons include, but are not limited to, the fact that the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, violated due process by revitalizing invalid election fraud claims and time-barred misdemeanor allegations by elevating them into unnamed felonies. Post-truth. We just want to get rid of Donald Trump. Find us a way to do it. And you, again, regardless as to whether you like Donald Trump or not, as I said to you on January 21st, 2017, if you were tuned into the radio show, all of this has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It has to do with you. Because if they can do it to him, they can do it to you and me and anyone else. And we have watched this grow like just so much chickweed in your yard. Once it was allowed to grow in under the mulch pile of our society, this became how things are getting done. You just heard it there with the NPR chief. It's about finding commonality and then getting things done. No, it's about the truth. This is the same nonsense. This is the same nonsensical claptrap. And by the way, why does everyone blame Fox for having pretty women? But the NPR chief looks like she just walked off the Miss Virginia stage. Just saying. I know that's lookism. I probably should be fined for that or something. But here is the question. Isn't this post-truth society, everything we watched beginning in 1994 with, well, it hinges on what the definition of is. And I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. Remember, the guy was in the camera pointing his corpulent little Arkansanian finger into you. I did not have sexual relations. And then when queried about it, because Monica Lewinsky said, yes, they did, he said, well, where I grew up, you got to understand, where I grew up, that's not considered sexual relations. And everyone went, well, you know, we like him, and he's the head of our party, and Hillary scares us, so we're going to kind of let him go with this. And remember, Bill Clinton's impeachment was not because he had an affair in the Oval Office, or in the presidential office, to be fair. It's different than the Oval Office. Oval Office is in a lot of ways ceremonial. It's like a meeting room more than it is the president's actual office. The office where that happened is in the West Wing, but it's not there. The issue was that he lied under oath, and that's a felony. You want to change that? Get that off the books. Write a bill that says, you know what, lying under oath is no longer a felony. If we're in this post-truth society, the post-truth society really began when everyone said, oh, it's just old Bill, you know, his mom was sketchy, and, you know, he grew up in a brothel, and so maybe he doesn't think that what he was doing was sexual relations. So maybe he didn't really lie when he said that. And thus began the idea that what you believe is more important than what the truth is. So if you want to know where this whole post-truth society began, it's always been there. That's why one of the commandments was, thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor. So this isn't new. Americans didn't invent this. Apparently the Israelites were also having a problem with bearing false witness against their neighbors. But we have ramped it up to this Marxist manifest. And Marx says there are going to be times where lying is necessary to achieve the greater good. Just like he also says there are going to be people who don't agree with this, and they're going to have to be removed from society. Why are these belief structures that anyone would follow? Why? Why, if something is based on the idea of lying and getting rid of people who disagree with you, why would anyone want that? Why would anyone say, hey, we want, oh, okay, maybe she wants that, but I don't know anyone else does.
A bit cooler ahead. Your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy, highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday, partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning on this Friday morning. Thank you for letting us be of service to you. And we're just getting close. May 3rd is the beginning of our 45-day ridiculous election cycle for the primaries coming up, 7th District, 5th District, and all that. Of course, culminating on Election Culmination Day, which will be June 18th. And hopefully you've been volunteering for your political party so you can be a poll watcher and that kind of thing. Now, the Virginia Institute for Public Policy has put together an amazing team of people to go out and try to get election officials on top of that in there. And to talk a little bit about that is the executive director of the Election Integrity Network, Kerry Telesco. Kerry, thanks so much for taking some time out. But more importantly, and I know I said this to you the last time we spoke, thank you for doing this, because how many times we have to go through this? It's not who votes, it's who counts the votes. I don't know, but how are you doing this weekend?
I'm doing fine. And yeah, we have 200 something days between now and election day. We have a way lot less than that between now and your horrible election season in Virginia. So there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of red flags that we need to be looking at as we head into that time period.
So, well covered, obviously, the Zuckerbucks and the Eric walking around list and dragging people out of their homes who are completely disinterested about voting to get them to vote blue. And those kind of things have been well covered. But what other red flags should people be watching out for as we get into first the primary and then the general election seasons?
One of the things that has really percolated over the last couple of months, and before I say what it is, I would say if somebody said this to you 4, 5, 6, 10 years ago, people would think you were nuts. But we have a serious problem in this country now, including in Virginia, where foreign nationals are being registered to vote and are very likely to vote in the next election. A lot of that is funded by the American left. Some of that is funded by foreign nationals themselves, one particular Chinese billionaire and a particular Swiss billionaire who were getting around some federal rules on how much money or where foreign people can send donations to inflict damage on our election system. So coming up in Virginia and anywhere else, it's going to be really important for the election officials to make sure that they are ensuring that anybody voting is actually an American citizen. I always say Norwegians are the only ones who vote in Norway, and Peruvians are the only ones who vote in Peru, and Americans should be the only ones who vote in America. And why are we even having this conversation?
It's crazy making to think about it. You're right. I mean, the thought of such a thing. Although, if you listen to some, and I go back some time, and we've lived in a college town both here and in Pennsylvania prior to that, and you listen to the people who flog away at the idea that some college kid that is a resident of New York State or California. I think we watched this in 2008. One of the comedians from Comedy Central was out there and said, "Go vote where your grandma lives," because they wanted to flip Florida. The joke being that grandma lives in Florida. You go down and you vote there, and walk your vote is what I think they called it. But the premise being that, oh, well, university students are there 8 months out of the year. They should have a say. And I think that's kind of the building block, that once you kind of allowed for that, it's Johnny bar the door. Well, he's got a visa. Why can't he vote in the elections? He's ostensibly living here. And I'm saying this not because I agree with it, but that seems to be their attitude towards some of this.
Oh, yeah, it's all about numbers. It has absolutely nothing to do with ethics or laws or anything like that. And I want to point out, hopping on what you're saying about students, there are many states, and I have to say, I do not know one way or the other if Virginia is one of them or not, so shame on me. But there are many states who allow a student ID to be the only ID required to vote. So just like my kids, my kids went to colleges in different states, and they voted in Virginia with absentee ballots because I would have killed them otherwise. And they knew better. But the other thing, which is huge, is we have something like 1.2 million international students, i.e., foreign nationals. God bless them. Glad they're here. They're in U.S. universities. And they represent over 200 countries. A ton of them are from China. And they can vote with their student ID in many states because the procedures are not in place to prevent them to vote. And I will say, there's two kinds of vote fraud, the kind that you do on purpose and the kind you don't know any better. And I think like a lot of times with our illegal immigrants who come over the border, who come from countries with very corrupt elections, as well as some of our student populations, they honestly do not know that they are not allowed to vote because these left-wing vote registration groups, which I might add, are literally sitting on the north bank of the Rio Grande registering people.
Oh, sure. Come right in. We'll help you.
They just don't know. Like they honestly, I think some of them do, but I think some of them honestly don't know. And I think that's the problem with a lot of the students too. When they get registered by some left-wing group in Virginia and their mom and dad are in Ohio paying their tuition, they're not told that that's not lawful. They're not told that they can't places. So, there's a lot of education that really needs to go on, but the foreign national voting is very, very scary.
Well, especially as you mentioned, the southern border of the United States, Carrie, where Johnny bar the door. We're talking millions and millions of people who have gone through. And in Virginia, and I don't know if the state issues different color ID cards, but all you need is a state issued identification card, and that includes student IDs. Now, I don't know if UVA or Virginia Tech student ID cards are different regarding your citizenship or not. But I do know that the law says all you need is a state issued identification card, which I thought was an incredible loophole that they wrote in when they tried to write in this some semblance of identification to vote. They said, well, what if it's just state issued? And a lot of people on my side of the fence said, all right, if we can get some sort of ID, let's do it. But now we see people registering to vote with nothing more than an electric bill from an address that they claim is theirs. So the integrity goes back even before they show up at the polling place. It's how they get on the poll books, isn't it, Carrie?
It is. And Noah could float his ark through the holes that you have in your laws in Virginia, unfortunately. And here's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. Here's the thing about the ID. First, the nomenclature state ID is utterly meaningless because it does not have anything to do with your citizenship. So there's two kinds of unlawful foreign national voters. The ones who are here 100% illegally, who again, there's organizations at the border registering them. Now we have pictures of flyers in Mexico asking
Oh my gosh.
for Biden with physical, I mean, you and I could look at them with our eyes, but the other group is the people who are here lawfully,
Mm-hmm.
not American citizens yet. A lot of people, and I have to say, at first I was one of them, thought that the real ID solved that problem. I thought that the little star on my identification meant that I am an American citizen. It absolutely 100% does not. In fact, we were on a call with some legislators in Montana the other day who are fighting non-citizen voting in their state. And one of the legislators said, well, you know, we don't have real ID. If we had real ID, it would solve the problem. And we were all sort of slapping our foreheads and saying, no, absolutely not. All a real ID does is confirm that the person whose picture is on the front is the person whose picture's on the front. You can be an unlawful immigrant and get it. You can be a lawful immigrant and get it. You can be an American citizen, but there's absolutely no verification whatsoever that you are an American citizen and you can vote. None.
That's
Yeah.
so how do we do it? I mean, because I know lots of folks volunteer to be poll watchers, and you've been going around the country with Cleta and Clarabelle and all these folks and Linda and Lynn Taylor, getting people elected into these positions, these officers of elections, Carrie. How do we fight this? It sounds like we're trying to bail against the tide with a teaspoon.
Well, in Virginia in particular, yeah, I mean, I'd like to be more cheerful about it, but in Virginia in particular, it's going to be a law change. Like, for example, your constitution says citizens may vote, and then it talks about men. So it's it's a little bit outdated.
Right.
So that definitely needs to change. And things that happen at the DMV in Virginia need to change, because we know for a fact that people who are not legal residents are going in and at least getting an ID card because they want to work or for whatever reason, and are being offered a voter registration card. They should not be offered a voter registration card at the DMV without proof of citizenship, period. So one of the huge problems, and it's not just Virginia, it's around the country, is the way they're all being registered through the DMVs.
Yeah, the motor voter stuff that they did.
There should be a law that says no employee of the Virginia DMV is allowed to hand a voter registration card to anyone who has not proven citizenship, period. That's the end of your law. And, you know, it's just that simple. For now, I think the thing to do if, you know, you're working on election integrity in Virginia is to make an issue out of it, because that does help. Even if you can't change laws, raising a fuss can help. You know, go into your local election office with a list of questions and say, how do you ensure that my vote is not negated by someone who is not a lawful voter? What do you do to prove citizenship? Blah, blah, blah. And just at least, if nothing else, put them on notice that you're watching.
Well, and also think about this, because I know even Republican election officials will say, with advice not to make a big deal at the polling place, and I'm getting the impression that even if you came across somebody that, you know, was holding on to a Che Guevara, you know, for president sticker, they'd let them vote just because they didn't want to make a fuss or wind up on the evening news. Is that one of the tricks of the trade, is to, you know, make people like yourself or me that would stand up against it afraid to, or to not have the backing of the government when we do?
Absolutely, 100%. So you have caught on to one of the narratives that the left is pushing all over the country, including in Florida where I live, which is that all poll workers and poll watchers who are party affiliated are secret axe murderers, and they're going to attack all the election officials and die. This is just huge. So our Secretary of State, I joked with him a few months ago, you need to do a report about all the incidents of poll observers attacking or being rude to poll workers, and write a report, and there'll be nothing in it. So he did actually do that. There were
Good
no
for you.
bless his heart. But the thing is, it is not so much about the legislation they're trying to push that makes attacking a poll, an election official, a felony, which of course it already is. You're not allowed to attack people. But it's about exactly what you said. It is their intimidation technique. And I want to say it was either Clarabelle or one of the people from VFE Virginia fair elections was in a polling station, and one of the left-wing groups said, where are you from? And it was clear that it was a election integrity, conservative election integrity group. And the person was shocked. She said, why are you here? And so it was that why are you here question that exploded on the left, and why they're accusing everybody of it. Because again, some states have passed laws that basically says, if you're a poll observer and you give an election official stink eye, that's a felony. So it is absolutely 100% designed to intimidate us from becoming poll observers. And I would just encourage absolutely everybody to not pay any attention to that. Be brave and go forward.
Well, and you talk about being brave. We were just reading a report on what's in front of the Supreme Court right now is this interference in a government activity charge that could get you 20 years if they still, maintain. I know Justice Alito said they thought that was ridiculous because you could, and I think it was his point, if you just simply question an election worker or got in and said, I don't think they're supposed to vote, that's technically, by the technicality of the law, interfering with a government activity. And I think that was intentionally the poison pill in that kind of insurrection thing. So if you're just there to make sure every valid voter casts one valid vote, you could, if the letter of the law is followed, find yourself in jail, Cleta, I'm sorry, Carrie, and I guess that's part and parcel of what I want to kind of get people through is who's there to stand up for the person who winds up in the county sheriff's office for asking a question at a polling place.
Yeah, it's absolutely outrageous. And I remember, I don't know what state, I want to say it was Georgia, and they had some state testimony in the legislator, and this one election official kept talking about being intimidated, and somebody asked him, one of the legislators said, well, like, exactly what was that? Well, he told me I wasn't doing this correctly, and he raised his voice.
Oh
Well,
my gosh.
seriously, grow up. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. But again, to your point, that it's all purposeful. They could care less about election officials. That's just a tool in their toolbox to make everybody fear. But I would say, I would say this to anyone in any state, if you're a poll observer and you're going in and doing a patriotic duty, bring the statutes with you. If there's some statute in law in Virginia that says you're supposed to be X feet away and you are allowed to do that, we always tell them no hands, don't touch anything. You're allowed to do this, but not that. Just carry it with you, and you mind the law, not your manners so much, but make sure you mind the law. And VFE does a wonderful job training people. So anybody working on that who wants training, that's the place to go, is to Virginia Fair Elections. Bring that with you and on a clipboard. And if somebody says to you, oh, you're getting too close, you can prove you're not. So quick, funny story. There was a lady in Arizona in 2022 who called me and said, we're supposed to be 3 feet away from the table to observe ballots being verified. And they keep telling me I'm getting too close, and I'm not. I say to her, go to Lowe's and buy a yardstick and just stand. And she did. She went to Lowe's, she bought a yardstick, and she had the paper in one hand that said she could be 3 feet away and the yardstick in the other. And that was the end of it. They didn't say another. And she said, I was further away. I was closer then than I was when they were yelling at me. So, proving that you have a right to be there is really the way to go.
And having that backup, as you mentioned, Virginia Fair Elections, part of the Election Integrity Network, will arm you with those tools. And then, as you said, Doc Wheeler is wonderful about how to be forceful without being problematic. And that's part of it too. I mean, we don't want to sit there and start a fist fight. We want to say, I don't think that person should be voting, and then get that on the record, get that taken care of, have a provisional, because I think most of it comes down to then they cast a provisional, and if they don't show up by Friday with any proof of ID other than whatever we question, that's important. Where do people? It's whoiscounting.us is your organization, right, Carrie?
Whoiscounting.us, who's counting us, no apostrophes, just whoiscounting.us. us. And we have a button there that says join. And if you hit the join button, it will send us an email. You know, fill in what your name and your state, and it'll send us an email, and we can do one of two things. We can connect you to the 8 national working groups we have on election integrity issues like legislation, voter roll cleanup, election technology, blah, 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 all that stuff. And we can also connect you with any, if you're in another state, we can connect you with the state election integrity coalition. And of course, in Virginia, it's Virginia Fair Elections, which is absolutely fantastic. So we welcome people to come to Who's Counting Us and have a look and see what they can, what we can do for them.
And the biggest weapon is turnout. Let's all turn out. Let's all vote, because if you vote, then they can't steal your vote. And the more of us that turn out, the harder it is for them to dilute our votes. Is that a fair thing to say in conclusion, Carrie?
And in Virginia in particular, I would say, we have a little phrase called VIP1, vote in person on the first day. I could name by name 4 people I personally know who went, and I, used to live in Virginia, so I know a lot of Virginians who went to the polls on election day because that's what you did with your mom and dad, and it's fun.
Yep.
And it is, and was told that they already voted, and they had not already. Well, I have your absentee ballot noted. So VIP1 means go and vote on the first day, because if you vote on that first day, no one can steal your vote. It's an unfortunate fact. It's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. But I think the Republican Party calls it bank your vote, which nobody really knows what that actually means.
No.
So I'm sticking with VIP1.
That's right.
Voting on the first day.
VIP1. Thank you so much, Carrie Telesco from who'scounting.us. I appreciate it, and thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for all you do.
Cooler ahead, your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy, highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday, partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in, letting us do what we do here. We've got a busy weekend of things going on. It is Dogwood Festival weekend here in Central Virginia, and it kicks off the Dogwood Parade. It's a big, if you're tuning in from any other part of the country, every community has that big event. Some of it's traditional. It's like a Memorial Day, Independence Day, that kind of thing, and certainly we have those as well. But the Dogwood Parade and the Dogwood Festival goes on for a couple of weeks. Carnival, all that going on, mainly to help raise money for the Dogwood Vietnam Memorial in Charlottesville, which is the oldest municipal Vietnam War memorial in the country. And I warn people, and I have since the first conversations of taking down our Civil War monuments, they're going to come for this one soon. It will at some point. Somebody will posit the idea that we should eliminate Vietnam. Why is it only Vietnam? Nobody liked Vietnam. We don't want to be associated with such an unpopular police action, all the other nonsensical stuff that they will throw into the mix, and it's a shame. But it's how they roll. It's what they do there. But it kicks off with something kind of neat. It is the Kiwanis Club actually gets together before the big Dogwood Parade and makes pancakes for everybody to raise money for their works in the community. And I'm going to be one of the celebrity pancake flippers on Saturday morning, and hopefully we'll catch up with some of the folks from the Kiwanis Club to tell us more about all the things that are going to be functioning within the pancake breakfast. But hope you can join us, and again, if you're reading on the screen, you get the locations and all of that. It is starting at 7 a.m. I will be there on at 8 a.m. It's all you can eat, $5. Children eat free, so bring the kids along as well. A couple of emails where we get into other things going on here and other things that we're going to get into. And I want to spend a little time on this very bizarre story of murder by remote control. And I don't know who the intended victims are, but it goes back into who do you trust? And Dr. Clark actually had a good point. He said, and let me see if I can find his comment for you here regarding the NPR lady. Didn't the NPR lady, didn't she in fact admit that truth and narrative are in conflict? And why would we ultra right-wingers that believe truth is foremost want common ground with people believing any lie that promotes the narrative is justified and acceptable? So let me go back to the story that she shared with us here, and let me, where'd her clip go? The NPR lady, the crazy NPR lady. Okay, here's what she said the other day in a TED talk about the truth.
Wikipedia's model work there. It actually works really well. Because in our normal lives, these contentious conversations tend to erupt over disagreement about what the truth actually is. But the people who write these articles, they're not focused on the truth. They're focused on something else, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years of working with these brilliant folks, I've come to believe that they are onto something, that perhaps for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. Now, that is not to say that the truth doesn't exist, nor is it to say that the truth isn't important. Clearly, the search for the truth has led us to do great things, to learn great things. But I think if I were to really ask you to think about this, one of the things that we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience in all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths. And so, in the spirit of that, I'm certain that the truth exists for you.
Yeah. All the chronicles of human existence, like the fascist expansions through Europe, the gulags of the Soviet Union, all those wonderful chronicles of human existence. Your truth. Not the truth, your truth. And, never has Marxism had such a pretty face attached to it. I mean, you got to admit, she's a lot easier on the eyes than Karl Marx. And I know I'm going to be tagged for being sexist or something like that. But if you're going to have somebody pitching Marxism, generally speaking, they're going to look like me. The ponytail, the jacket when the jacket isn't necessary, pretending he's some professor in some library somewhere. Not going to look like her, that's for sure.
A bit cooler ahead, your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy, highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday, partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning. Thank you for joining in. Rumble, YouTube, hundreds and hundreds of people joining us in both of those milieus. Somebody said, well, you're going to do Facebook Live too, Joe? I mean, how many places does this need to be before somebody says, all right, we've jumped the creepy shark here just a little bit? Seeing, what was the old auto buyers market newspaper used to come around my neighborhood, used to pick them up in the early days of convenience stores, and the quote was, showing beats just telling. I'm not sure I make the case for that, but you can call us at 434-882-4217. That is also a cell phone number, so if you want to just text me something, Dr. Clark's been doing that this morning, or you can email me at jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. I know technically several of you have said you understand, Joe, and I appreciate the fact that you at least accept the premise that maybe Joe didn't realize this isn't radio. I know it's not radio. People associate me with radio. So I want to jump to this story because this story just, I don't know, it scares me on a substantive level. There was a virus years ago, coming up on probably 15, 16 years ago, that I used to refer to as the Amish virus. The Amish virus was notable because it didn't have any code written into it. It was just an email that went out to millions of emails saying, hey, this file is corrupted, you better delete it. And it looked like it came from McAfee or something like that. So it was one of the .exe files in your computer, and once you deleted it, your computer died. And I just said, wow, that was really way too easy to make us crash all of our computers. That's kind of what this story reminds me of. It's out of Ohio, and you got to let this story play out because it's dogged me since I first saw this. I'm just like, how does it get like this? And obviously there are, places where you can already hear the defense attorneys saying, well, my client can't be held accountable for what he did. But here is the story of this bizarre killing.
The story looks ordinary at first. The Clark County, Ohio Sheriff's Office says 61-year-old Lolitha Hall is on an Uber job in late March, asked to pick up a package at William Brock's home. Minutes later, everything changes as 81-year-old Brock can be seen pointing his gun at the retreating, pleading woman.
Stop. Or I'll call 911.
A camera in Hall's vehicle captures the sound of the first gunshot. The confrontation continues.
Oh, get out.
More gunfire. As the video continues, Hall cries out for help, and the story takes a twist.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
Brock called 911, requested help, reported the shooting, and admitted he was the one who shot her.
Why did you do that?
Because I was threatened that she was going to come and kill me.
She threatened to kill you?
No, it's the guy on the phone that's been trying to get money out of me.
The sheriff's office says Brock had been called by a scammer, claiming one of his relatives was in jail, then making threats and demanding money. They say Hall then got a request via the Uber app from the same scammer or someone working with them to pick up a package. The report says Brock thought Hall had come on behalf of the scammers to hurt him. Authorities say Hall made no requests other than to ask for the package. I'm Emily Schmidt reporting.
So, I mean, this story bugs me because, I mean, it's violence by remote control. And it really, so as it plays out, this is as I think the reporter did a decent job of laying this timeline out. So somebody calls this guy and says, family members have received these phone calls. You've probably received one, oh, your son is in jail, and I'm with the sheriff's office from way under, and we have your son in custody right now, but we'll release him if you wire us XYZ amount of money, whatever it may be, and then people fall prey to it. I mean, this is why these scams exist, because people actually do it. They're like, oh my God, my son's in jail, and they go to the local, usually they'll ask you to go to American Express or any of these cash wiring services. And almost every sheriff's department says, we don't do that. But yet people still fall prey to it. But this takes this bizarre turn to it where they're threatening this guy. We're going to come, we're going to beat you up, we're going to kill you if you don't give us money. And we're sending one of our couriers over to get it right now. And then they call this woman. Now, I don't know who they had it in for. Did they have it in for the woman? Did they have it in for the guy? I mean, did the woman... Generally, you're not supposed to know who the Uber driver is that you call. Was this an amateur swatting where they said, oh, we're going to get this crazy old coot in trouble? I don't know if he's a crazy old coot, but I'm just presuming that's what these people were thinking. And we'll get him, we'll show him. Maybe he was somebody who they didn't like in their neighborhood, and they're like, oh, we know what to do with old Sam. Sam's got guns, and Sam's one of them conspiracy theorists. So we're going to scare him. We're going to have some fun. Because we know he keeps firearms, and he thinks all the aliens are coming to get him, or whatever the story is. Now, and This is. I mean, it's swatting. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene was in the 5th Congressional District, I think, down in Appomattox, campaigning for John McGuire. They swatted her house, I think, half a dozen times. They called the police to her house because of domestic disturbances and shots fired. And so the police go out because police get a call for that kind of stuff. They're going to go out for it. But this takes that weird kind of amateur turn. So instead of using the police, we're going to call this guy, my spider senses say he was the target of it, because I know that it's a rare instance where you know who the Uber driver is that you're going to get, unless you know something I don't know about how to hack Uber and get specific drivers called out. I would like to think that that's what this Ohio Sheriff's Department has got to figure out is, did they know which Uber driver it was? And if not, then she's just the innocent pawn in all of this, where they wanted to get this guy, show this guy up, and we all face this peril. And they do it to specifically outspoken Second Amendment advocates, maybe. You know, he was somebody they knew from the local community was a big Second Amendment guy. And they're like, oh, we'll hang him on his own petard. We'll get an Uber driver, scare him into thinking that this Uber driver is here to be our enforcer. Now, I'm not saying this guy was right. Because once it was clear that this woman had nothing to do and had no wherewithal to be injurious to this guy, he should have de-escalated it. So let's be abundantly clear on whether or not I think this guy's guilty of anything or not. Because a firearm is a responsibility as much as it's a right. The Second Amendment, and we talk about this, see, the American authoritarian left wants a new modern Bill of Rights that talks about the things the government's going to do for you. We'll give you health care, we'll give you schooling, we'll give you transportation, we'll give you all these things, but you have no right to do anything on your own. You may think you do, and that'll make the first couple of generations a little tough to deal with in it. But this guy should have, as a good Second Amendment follower, understand that you don't just have the right to shoot somebody because somebody told you somebody's going to come and cause trouble. It actually has to be manifesting. You don't. One of the first things I was taught by the fellow who was teaching me firearm safety and how to hit targets and things like that was, you don't draw your firearm unless you're ready to use it. It's one of those axioms in firearms, is that if you're holding it and pointing it at somebody, you better be ready to shoot it. Because just doing this and waving it around, that's for the movies. That's John McClane, that stuff. Yippee-ki-yay, etc. So he's already, in violation of good firearm understandings the minute he's like walking her out with that pistol in his hand. And when it became clear that she was no threat, he should have stayed down and said, all right, hey, hang on a second, lady. But we don't know the conversation, so obviously this is, but it just, as soon as I saw the story yesterday, I was just like, oh my God, this story bugs me. Bugs me to no end, because I think we all walk on eggshells for it. When people call into the radio show back in the old days, I would always have to sit there and really, really listen, especially people I hadn't heard from before. Are they trying to, because they're all out there to do the setup. They all want, if the bigger you are, the more likely they are to try to set you up. The more likely they want to make you or evoke from you a reaction that will then make their case about the whatever it is they want to make, whether it be the parents at a school board meeting. Tim Kaine, we told you earlier in the week, Tim Kaine comparing parents at school board meetings to the January 6th rioters, while I cowered in my office calling for mommy. Just like I cowered in my limousine while I was stuck in that 15-inch snowstorm on I-95, just cowering, waiting for somebody from the government to come help me, because I'm a Democrat, and that's what I'm told is going to happen. But that's we all run that peril, and it's dangerous, because I think we become dehumanized. We don't want to just talk with somebody because we're always looking around for the person with the cell phone that's recording it. Or as in the case of Marjorie Taylor Greene and the swatting incidents, what are they maybe trying to get her to do when the police arrive? And it goes back to what the woman was saying in the previous segment. We're just trying to look for our truth. So apparently these people who called both these people had their own version of the truth.
A bit cooler ahead. Your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy, highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday, partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning, and here on YouTube and Rumble, and I don't know how many other ways that people are like, oh, well, you can get Instagram, you can do all these things. I'm like, all right. There are people. When I went on AM and FM at the same time, I thought that was a big stretch.
That was a big deal.
That was a big deal. Now I'm on YouTube and Rumble, and people are like, "Oh, you could do Instagram Live and X Live, just like Tucker Carlson did." And I'm like, "All right, you're pushing the level of this Luddite's ability to make."
Well, I'm going to take time today and look up Rumble. We had a band in Des Moines called the Rumbles, but did a song called Jezebel, one of the great songs of all time. So I'm going to look up Rumble today and see what it can do for me.
We got a lot of viewers on Rumble, Mac. Mac
I
McDonald
love
is
it.
here to
I love
open
it.
his notebook for us. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Doing fine, wrapping up the week. The Virginia spring game is tomorrow. We'll talk about that in just a second. Also coming up with the Foster and Friends program, which you can find all over the state. The sports fans talk about Michael Vick. That name might have a connotation they're not happy with. Anyway, Governor Glenn Youngkin, he pulled the pen out. He had tech people there. He had Virginia people there, and he signed a bill that will significantly change the way colleges and universities in the state will operate with regard to NIL, name, image, and likeness. Among those in attendance in the Patrick Henry building was a delegation from UVA, and it included Carla Williams, Tony Elliott, head football coach, and head volleyball coach Shannon Wells. The bill was sponsored by Delegate Terry Austin, and it goes into effect now July 1. It will allow UVA and its peer institutions to be considerably more involved in now helping the student athletes navigate NIL opportunities. So, moreover, a university will be allowed to directly compensate student athletes for their use of their name, image, likeness. And the governing body in UVA's case, the Board of Visitors, approves policies and procedures that govern it. When that gets all T's crossed and I's dotted, that means a lot of flexibility. In fact, that was the word that Carla Williams actually used for schools, and all the helmets were there. William and Mary's, Liberty's, Virginia Tech's, UVA's, George Mason, they were all there. So because all the public institutions in the Commonwealth are going to be able to benefit from this. So in all the tax breaks there are. All right. A couple of weeks ago during spring practice, Joe, Virginia head football coach Tony Elliott was passing out plenty of praise. He was talking about our depth is better retention. The fundamentals are getting there, and the program is simply turning the corner. Tomorrow, UVA fans will have an opportunity to see the third-year version of the Elliott program, despite the plethora of the offseason surgeries, especially in an offensive line that's been depleted. He thought UVA's coaches upgraded the program in almost every area in the spring.
We have more depth, so then now we can really get good competitive work because we have more depth. I think the retention is good. And now where we got to get better is we got to get better fundamentally with all of the details of what we do. So I think we're ahead of where we've been in past springs at this point, and we should be because of the offseason. But now I'm excited to see how they're going to strain and get better with the bulk of our work from a live standpoint coming in the next 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, of course, the UVA fans interested in the quarterback race between Muskett and Calandria. And right now, Tony Muskett has the edge because that's the way things finished. But Calandria is right there, so it could be a two-headed monster. Also, the 4 new because there's a freshman, and then the 3 transfer wideouts that are going to be part of the program will also be showcased tomorrow. So anyway, a lot of fun.
And that Calandria kid, I mean, he was flashes
he's going to be good.
Who was the guy?
Hopefully, the
Oregon?
Cavs can keep him. Huh?
Who was the kid at Oregon that lit it up for a while, and then he's fizzled. I think he's with Tennessee in the league where they play for pay, but I forget the kid's name at Oregon, but he was just lighting it up. And this Calandria kid kind of reminds me of him.
Oh yeah, it'll come to me.
Right.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Well, you go on. I'm gonna use my Google memory.
Oh,
stick,
okay.
so.
Yeah, it'll come to me. Well, if sports fans mention the name Michael Vick, what comes to mind, right? The 2007 dogfighting ring and the Vick involvement. 21 months in a federal prison pretty much ended his NFL career. The former Hokie did play for the Eagles for 5 years. He led Philly to a division title in 2010. He earned the Comeback Player of the Year and then ended his NFL days with the Jets and Steelers. He was primarily a backup there. Born in Newport News, Michael Vick learned many of his quarterback skills from a former Wahoo, a guy that was 4 years older than him, his second cousin, Aaron Brooks. After he signed with Vatek, had a redshirt year, he burst on the scene and became one of the most revered talents at that position, and really, maybe turned around the position. A 99 appearance in the national title game showcased what Vick could do, and then he finished his stint in 2000. Then he went pro, saying that he wanted to help mom and dad, right? Well, one thing is certain. Frank Beamer always stood behind Michael. Yes, Beamer got a lot of criticism for helping his brother Marcus and Michael, but they were always there. Bud explained to me, and Bud will talk about it during Foster and Friends. Bud talked about how the staff it was every couple of days, some staff member was writing Michael Vick a letter while he was in Leavenworth. And Michael Vick never forgot the association with his former college head coach.
Not just on the field when I had the ball in my hands and quarterbacking for his team, but the trust outside of the building really gave me more respect for him because, like I say, he knew I was gonna make mistakes. He knew we made mistakes, but Coach wasn't hard on you unless you made the same mistake twice.
Yeah, football coaches don't like guys who make, mistakes 2 and 3 times. So anyway, with all that being said, the entire interview will be aired tomorrow and should be listenable. I'm going to post some stuff on social media.
Here's an idea. This is programming on the fly here.
That's fine.
Also known as making it up as we go along. Why don't you send me what you got? We don't have a radio affiliate right now. Of course, Mac knows that he will be on Thomas
okay.
Media's affiliate in Stanton, Waynesboro. But without the radio home up, I'll put it out here on the YouTube and Rumble channel, so you can get a firsthand feel for what Rumble's all about there, Mac.
Wow, you want the whole show?
Well, yeah. I mean, it'll get a little awkward if you only send me a 15-second clip.
No.
I
mean, I didn't know if you wanted just like the Vic segments or
no,
if you
send
want
the whole thing. We'll put it.
I got you. I got you. I'll send you the
now,
link.
Now you
I
probably
can do it
don't.
in 5 minutes.
You didn't shoot it in video, so just send me the audio, and then I'll go.
You got it, just like always.
I'll go to the internet and I'll get a bunch of pictures of you and Coach
Oh,
Foster.
that's worth it. Yeah, that's
that's what you want to hear. Yeah, it's like good stuff. Yeah, no, we'll get all that. We'll put it out there and let
that's
people
great.
tune in for you. But
no, I appreciate that. Because as you motor along, you're becoming one of the, you're becoming the Rumble king.
Here it comes. By the way, Marcus Mariota was who I was thinking.
Oh, of course. Okay.
And this is Calandria kid reminds me of him, but I mean he's like lightning. You don't know if it's going to strike the Statue of Liberty or not, or is it just going to burn a forest down? So I guess that's going to be Tony Elliott's big key is, can we get this kid, get all that talent, that ability, or that kind of Brett Favre-ness for the older viewers, and kind of harness it into, like, don't throw so many interceptions, you can't just make it up on the fly, get us somewhere in between a bonfire and a steam train, boiling over. But I think he's got so much upside to it. It would be neat to see UVA tap into that.
Oh, sure. By the way, is your weather forecast good for the weekend?
I got to ask Tommy. Honestly, he was doing it.
I was just curious.
When Tommy was doing the weather forecast, I was down here looking at my notes. And
no, that's okay. By the way, and I haven't looked either, but a good friend of mine who has been at UVA forever and looks like he's 26 years old, Matt Altoff, who is the head equipment guy for the program and just handles everything. He'll have his big sale tomorrow. He does it every year, built around the spring game. So they get all the old like helmets and jerseys and a lot of stuff that they're not going to use. And they just have a sale. And I think the proceeds, I don't know, they do something with the proceeds. I'd be, if I'm saying Student Aid Foundation, VSAF, I'm not sure the proceeds go there. But anyway, Matt Altoff always has a huge sale in and around, so a lot of fans can pick up a jersey or even a helmet for their bookcase or whatever.
And I just realized, because it's Dogwood weekend. This is like our anniversary.
Oh, it's the Dogwood Parade this weekend.
Mac first met me 17 years ago on Dogwood or 16 years ago on Dogwood weekend.
Yeah.
So I'm new to town. They're like, "Oh no, Joe, the Dogwood Festival is the biggest thing. It's bigger than Christmas around here." So we were broadcasting live from the Dogwood Gala Breakfast, which is one of the many fundraising things that go on to help the Dogwood Vietnam Memorial. And Mac was the MC. I believe he and Pete Gillen sang "Wild Thing" for the audience.
Well, were you there the morning I played Elvis?
Yes, that was I think that was the same morning. And
thank you, Jim Carpenter. I changed clothes on the second floor of what was then the Omni, and I get in an elevator, and a very hungover mid-20s something traveling salesman got on the elevator, and she said, "Oh my God, did I drink way too much?"
Did I get on the wrong plane? Am I in Vegas?
Yeah, and so Jim Carpenter flashed the lights because we did
Oh my God, you did the whole act. Oh my God.
And I'm going around the room, and I'm these ladies are screaming, the average age, whatever it was, but the ladies are screaming. They're having it, and I'm doing the whole. I've never done Elvis before, ever. In fact, I had to wear white golf shoes. It was the only white shoes I had. And so I'm taking their napkins off the table, the Omni Breakfast, and I'm wiping my forehead, and they're stuffing the napkins in their purse.
Oh my gosh. This is like gasoline on a bonfire. This is just good. But these are so the reminder that all the Dogwood festivities, the parade, the Kiwanis pancake breakfast, which I'm going to be part of tomorrow morning, as well. All the festivities are all about raising money for the oldest municipal Vietnam War memorial in the nation, the Dogwood Vietnam Memorial, and is neat. And Jim's been terrific, chronicling all the days in and out with there. I thought of it. I said, oh gosh, this is Dogwood Parade weekend. This is sort of like the anniversary of when I first met Mac, and everyone's like, oh, Mac's a legend. Mac's a legend.
Well, I don't know about that,
and I was trying to get you to come on the radio show, and you were smart because you're like, oh, hold it, you work for the other guys. I'm not going to get in trouble with my boss. So
Darden Tao, and the old time Charlottesville people will remember Darden Tao.
Oh yeah,
who emceed that breakfast forever, and he always like put on 1,000 different hats, and did different things. And Darden Tao was so good. And then I just eventually got asked after Darden Tao his health was not letting him do that breakfast, and we did it for I don't know how many years.
Oh, it's terrific. Well, and of course, by the end, it was adjacent to the park that bears his name there at the. I say Elks Lodge right there next to Darden Tao Park.
Right, Darden Tao Park. Yeah.
But it's good stuff. It'll be.
That was a great memory.
Busy
A
weekend.
lot of fun.
And by the way.
And I still kick Jim Carpenter for. I'll never forgive Jim Carpenter for any of that stuff that he always tied me into. So.
yeah, I'm sure you were fooled. You're like, oh, okay, a room full of women taking my
screaming, and I get to do Elvis.
That's. I'm sure that was a really, really an arm twisting moment to get you to do that. Anyway, you have a great weekend. We'll think of you as the Dogwoods. I think for the first time in many years, the Dogwoods are actually in bloom this weekend. So
how about that? Good
timing for that. And you have a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday.
All right, JoJo. See you first thing Monday.
Cooler ahead. Your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon, otherwise mostly cloudy, highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm, mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday, partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning on YouTube, Rumble, and all the other associated places that you can find us wherever you can share them to whatever you want. If you want to send the link out on Instagram, that's fine. We do share the link to the Rumble page and the YouTube feed on our social media accounts as well. And I tell you this. Because it's how we have to do it right now. We're working on getting the technology up so we can go back to taking live phone calls. And certainly by the time the radio show relaunches, we better be. But as you can see over here, the phone number is 434-882-4217. Of course, you can email jtinthemorningradio@gmail.com. But we've had some folks calling in, so let's go to the phone lines and see and how we do this is we ask you to leave a voicemail, and then we will play it back. So here's the first one.
Hi, this is Joel from Naples calling. Good morning, Joe. I'm glad you're back on Rumble and YouTube. My question is the guest that you had on, she was talking about the student population or guest visas for, I guess, the students in the United States is up to 1.2 million.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it's that high. Where did she base her statistics off of? And she also said that right now, I guess there's no legislation where they can not vote. I guess they can get them registered and get them to vote. So just want to know if I could get clarification on it. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you, Joel. So he's talking about Kerry Telesco, from the Voter Integrity Network, who's counting.us, who's counting us. Who's counting.us is their website, and a lot of that data, a lot of those numbers come straight from the Department of Immigration and Naturalization Services, and these are the folks who they don't track who's got student visas very well. See September 11th, 2001, and the visa overstays that were the source. All 11 of the hijackers on September 11th were all visa overstays who were years into the wind because we're apparently asking a visa holder to come in and report to Immigration and Naturalization Services. Mean. This was long before woke became a thing. This is 2001. These folks, Mohammed Atta and the crew, were in the wind for a couple of years. And of course, once somebody's gone into the wind for 6 months, 8 months, you know the trail is daunting to try to come up with anyway. So that's where she was getting those statistics on non-citizens who now, as we talked about in the interview, have government IDs, which are all you need to get registered to vote. And using the motor voter con, just like we said, hey, this motor voter thing, this might be a way to get people registered to vote that shouldn't be voting. And understand, there is a premise, and I think we talked about it with Kerry, of presence. It is part of this thing called liquid democracy. And I don't know if you're new to us here on YouTube and Rumble. The radio audience has heard me go on at length about liquid democracy and its progenitor, who is Charles Dodgson. Charles Dodgson was a political philosopher, less well known than Marx or anything like that, or Saul Alinsky. But his viewpoint was, whoever is around should be allowed to vote, and the vote becomes currency. The vote becomes something the government can mandate. You can give your vote. You can have proxy voting. All these things go into liquid democracy, and one of the key premises is if you are somewhere, then you should be allowed to vote there. If you're in Paris and there's an election for the prime minister, you, by their theory, should be allowed to vote in it because you're there. And it's always been an issue around college towns, because college towns will say, but these students, they're here. Shouldn't they have a say? They're here 8 months out of the year. Shouldn't they have some say in what goes on? And they overtake city council elections, and they overtake board of supervisor elections in Virginia, and they do this in states all around the country. Because they're there, and we should let them go, even though they're citizens of some other state. And citizenship is the key to the whole thing, because citizenship is a compact. I know the American left will say, oh, no, everyone's, nobody can be illegal. The issue of citizenship is a compact between the government and the governed, and this goes beyond just the U.S. Constitution. But for the sake of our argument, let's use the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution has some very unique rules, unique in the entire human experience. So to just say, we're here for the free stuff, the better wages, the fast food, the talk radio, I don't know, whatever somebody says they're here in this country for, you first have to become a citizen so you understand what your responsibilities. Go back to the story about the guy who shot the Uber driver because somebody called him and said, "Yeah, we're sending our enforcer over. You're not going to know her, but she's going to come and she's going to kill you." And so then they go and call an Uber driver, and the Uber driver shows up at his house, and he pulls out on her and shoots her because he's sure that this woman is the enforcer, even though she's 61 years old and obviously doesn't look like an enforcer. But we've all watched enough Quentin Tarantino movies that you never know who the enforcer. It's often the one holding the teddy bear. And that becomes the issues. The guy, whether or not he was sold a bill of goods by the scammers on the phone, the swatters on the phone, he should have, knowing his rights and responsibilities, known that once it became clear the woman posed no threat to him, that he should have put the gun away. And that's just one of many examples I could give of the thing with citizenship and why citizenship is important, because it's A, knowing what your rights are endowed by God onto you, but it is also understanding what your responsibilities are as a counterbalance to those rights. See, rights have responsibilities. Liberties are just anarchy. You can just do whatever you want. There's no recompense. There's no responsibility to anyone else when you're taking liberties. That's why when Lyndon Johnson started the Great Society 60 years ago, he said, "We're going to start a new society based on abundance and liberty, as opposed to freedom and prosperity," which is a whole different matter. It's a whole different matter for the American left. They don't want you to have freedom and your own prosperity, because then what do you need the government for? What's their role? I mean, gosh darn it, they didn't go to school for 20 years to just go work at a drive-through. So that's where the citizenship comes in, and just telling somebody, "Oh, well, you should vote because you're here," is what we're in now. These 1.8 million folks, as you mentioned, Joel, they're just being told, "Hey, you're here in insert name of city here, Charlottesville, Stanton. So it's important to you that you vote for these people, and here's why." And then what happens is the manipulators will give them a list of reasons why it's important for them to vote. And they don't understand that they don't just get told what to do, because in a lot of cases they come from countries where that is exactly the case. I mean, I have family members, my wife's family, that are of Scottish descent. They grew up in Scotland, and they left really, mid-50s or so. So they didn't get into the real ramp-up of the NHS. But the NHS existed, and one of the things that they always complained about is, "I don't understand why I have to pay the doctor to see him." Well, he might actually tell you what's wrong with you rather than misdiagnose it, because he's like a clerk at the Department of Motor Vehicles. He's just fulfilling a civil servant's role. Greg writes in on the YouTube channel, "Which truth sets me free? That's what I want to know." Well, that's the difference. He's hearkening back to, we played the clip of the NPR chief, the pretty face that they've put on Marxism, telling a TED Talk recently that truth gets in the way of compromise. Truth gets in the way of finding common ground. Now, I've often asked the question, I've never received a satisfactory answer. If compromise is such a good thing, how does it have victims? That's like saying assault is a good thing because it has victims. You have victims of compromise. I think the entire United States is a victim of compromise. Certainly this post-George Floyd era has become an existential, we are all victims of compromise. The compromise, of course, being getting that section of the Declaration of Independence stricken that rebuked the Christian king of Great Britain for his promulgation of the slave trade, including a very telling passage in which they say he has stomped on our every legislative attempt to end this execrable commerce. So those are the things that citizenship is supposed to teach you. And it's like the guy in Ohio. Even American citizens don't, in my view, know what the responsibilities are that go with the rights. And I blame that on the American left, who tries to act like you can have your own truth, that your liberties are the most important things, the things that we have. Freedom is something that we will seek to get you out of. You want freedom from hunger. You want freedom from housing, what do they call it, housing insecurity. We want to give you freedom from food insecurity and housing insecurity and bill paying insecurity. They don't want to give you freedom for, because freedom for, first and foremost, would require you to understand the responsibilities for those things you have freedoms for. Virginia 5th District Congressman and Chairman of the Freedom Caucus coming up in a moment on Joe Thomas in the Morning.
A bit cooler ahead. Your Friday forecast calling for a chance of showers, maybe a thunderstorm in the afternoon. Otherwise, mostly cloudy. Highs around 70. Friday night, a chance of showers, maybe a scattered thunderstorm. Mostly cloudy and 56. Mostly sunny and 73 on Saturday. Partly cloudy and 44 on Saturday night. Sunday, partly sunny and 65. By Monday, we're mostly sunny with a high around 67. From BlueRidgeLife.com, I'm forecaster Tommy Stafford. Now, back to Joe Thomas in the morning.
Joe Thomas in the morning, and thank you for joining in with us here on. That was abrupt. Apologies for that. We may have, and right now, life used to be simple. I have 3 different Gmail accounts now, and I think when we sent our invite for Congressman Good to join us this week for our weekly chat, I just think I messed it up. I will mea culpa that. We wanted to talk about the story of the day, of course, which is the and we have his spot open here. So as soon as we've been trying other channels, back channels, to get the interview to him, but and maybe we'll make up for it on Monday's show. We'll see. But the story, of course, out of Israel and Tehran is the strikes, Israeli airstrikes. Of course, Tehran is like, what airstrikes? Literally, Tehran Tim, the new version of Karine Jean-Pierre or Baghdad Bob, is out there saying, well, we understand there have been some explosions, but we have nothing that says it was Israel, and certainly everyone's fine. Nothing bad happened, so everyone's fine. Go back to what you were normally doing, the stonings or whatever it is you were doing. Please return to your regularly scheduled stonings. Please rejoin the 16th century already in progress. Of course, the key right now is what's going on there. But what we discovered, and I wanted to get into it with them, is that TikTok ban is buried in the aid bill that we're told everyone must vote for the aid bill. Everyone must get stoned. Everyone has to back up the aid package bill for Ukraine because there are people who have promised other people a bunch of money. There, and so the TikTok ban, apparently, because this is how Washington operates, is buried inside the TikTok, inside the aid package for Ukraine, and I guess they figured if we gave them a large enough bill, that they wouldn't be able to notice it, and they wouldn't catch it, and then they'd vote for it, and we go, ha, 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 we can now ban websites because we want, and understand, we're not taking up for the Chinese Communist Party. I think telling everyone that your TikTok feed is determined by the Chinese Communist Party is an important notification there. And you might like that. I mean, certainly a majority of you are in Charlottesville, where they have flown the People's Revolutionary Army, PLA, People's Liberation Army flag over the downtown mall, even though they said, and I believe they've passed legislation in Charlottesville that bans displays of anything that's connected to fascism or human rights violation, but I guess that's okay. Like the climate agenda, we're serious about this, except for China. So I'm all for letting people know the Chinese Communist Party is manipulating your TikTok feed, but I don't want the federal government in this Trojan horse to be able to come in and ban like our Rumble channel or Rumble in general. So here's the story out of Washington that we were going to talk about with Bob. Legislation that would ban TikTok in the United States if its China-based owner doesn't sell its stake won a major boost Wednesday when House Republican leaders included it into a package of bills that would send aid to Ukraine and Israel. The bill could be law as soon as next week if Congress moves quickly. The TikTok legislation, which passed the House in March, has widespread support in both chambers, but not enough to pass on its own. That's why they have to bury it inside an aid package. It was included in the House Foreign Policy Package after negotiations with the Senate over how long the Chinese technology firm ByteDance would have to sell its stake in the app to continue operating in the United States. President Biden has said he would sign that TikTok ban. So before you say, hey, Joe, you sound like you're an apparatchik for the Chinese Communist Party, I'm opposing something that Joe Biden wants. Most of the time, you think that's pretty good. The bill would set up a 6-month deadline for TikTok to be sold by ByteDance. So that's 6 months, which gets us just before the election. So the Chinese Communist Party can continue to manipulate your TikTok feed till right before the presidential, actually here in Virginia, will be well on into the 45-day voting period that we love so much. Extending the divestment period is necessary to ensure there is enough time for a new buyer to get a deal done, said Senate Commerce Committee Chairwoman Maria Cantwell, said in a statement that she had successfully pushed to extend the period of time from 6 months to a year to give the company enough time to find a buyer. So actually, I'm sorry, 6 months was the original window, which would have put it just before the election. Now, of course, will allow the Chinese Communist Party to manipulate a lot of young people's news feeds until well after the presidential election. Good on you, Maria. If Congress passes the TikTok legislation, it would be an extraordinary and unusual moment in which both parties unite together against one company. But that's the problem. It's not just one company. Because what do they say about blood once you get the taste for it? So once they do that, they can do it with everything. What if they come to Elaine Thomas, the Chief Executive Officer of Thomas Media LLC, and say, we are going to force you to sell your company, or we're going to just shut you down. And you say, oh, Joe, why would they care about somebody broadcasting to Stanton, Virginia, and Central Virginia? What's to say they don't get there eventually? It's Martin Niemöller over and over again. First, they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't say anything because I was not a trade unionist. This is why this idea that if it's a Republican, I'm against it, or if it's a Democrat, I'm against it, is where we're getting run into a ditch. But Joe, the president was a Republican when the Department of Homeland Security was created, yet you seem to think it's a bad thing. You must hate Republicans, therefore you must be just like Rachel Maddow. That's not true, A. It's disingenuous, and it's dehumanizing. I don't get paid anything. Karine Jean-Pierre makes a pretty good living going out there and sales pitching all of Joe Biden's dementia. And Ms. Trump has plenty of people on payroll to pitch the RNC's position on anything. They don't need you and me to do it. But the point is that if they do this TikTok ban, that's one of the things I want to talk to Congressman Good about, but I'm hearing that this bill will come to a vote on Saturday. So by the time we gather on Monday, it may be well within the federal government's power to force your broadcasting company to shutter its doors, or your TV network or the internet site that you're watching this program on to shutter its doors. This is a Trojan horse. This is a way for the government to then start to be able to shut down different sources of communication. And again, what they've done, this is David Copperfield brilliance, the magician, not the fictional character. This is sleight of hand. This is, oh, it's bad, they're Chinese communists. Well, okay. When are we going to ban Smithfield from being owned by the Chinese Communist Party? Or Volvo? Or all those farms around all those military bases? I mean, if we've got this zeal for getting rid of the Chinese Communist Party, what about all the Chinese Communist Party officers that are, like we were talking about with Kerry Telesco, on our college campuses getting American degrees in various things, and also studying our technology. Many of them are engineering students at places like the University of Virginia, officers in the Chinese Communist Party's People's Liberation Army. So if we're so hell-bent on getting them out of TikTok, how about we get them out of our college campuses? But the Trojan horse is that once they've figured out how to get rid of TikTok, it's Johnny bar the door. So as Niemöller said, first they came for the Chinese Communist Party, and I didn't say anything because I don't have a TikTok account. And then they came for Facebook, and I said, well, I just use Facebook for promotion, so I said nothing. But then they came for Thomas Media LLC, and there was no one left to stand up for me. So until Monday, Saturday, you're going to get Freedom. We're going to put Freedom and Prosperity Radio out on this channel on Saturday morning, as we had done, and we'll get Mac and Foster and Friends. I think we'll pull that together as well for him, so that you can hear his program, and we'll just be ready here. So stay tuned to this space. We'll use the Rumble channel for those things, and then back here Monday morning for us here at the Pyramid Paving Studios in Palmyra, Virginia. Until any of that, enjoy the Dogwood weekend. Hopefully I will see you out at the Dogwood Pancake Breakfast again Saturday at 7 a.m. It begins. I'll be there flipping pancakes at 8 a.m. And somebody asked me, it's on Facebook. If you go there and you search for it, you will see, if you go to Kiwanis Club of Charlottesville, it is Kiwanis.org. But the Dogwood Pancake Breakfast is coming up there, so hopefully see you there. It is coming up. It's also on Facebook. So hopefully you can join us at any of those or back here Monday morning. Until such time as we do it again, so long, and thanks for all the fish.